Hey, what's up, my friends? This is Ivan Ottinger from EnglishTheSmartWay.com. Welcome to the English the Smart Way podcast, session number 3. Thank you so much for joining me today in another episode of English the Smart Way podcast. I appreciate you being here and I'm really excited because today's session is very special. I had the privilege to interview my very good friend Massimo. He's a neurosurgeon from Italy. And I met him months ago when he discovered English the Smart Way website and invited me to join the very special online English conversation group he is a member of. The reason I asked Massimo to join us for this podcast is that he is a great English speaker and I'm sure we all can learn from his English learning tips and experience. So here is Massimo. Enjoy. Hello everybody, I'm so happy and excited to welcome Massimo to our podcast. So hi Massimo and welcome to the show.
Hi Ivan, thank you very much. I'm really honored and proud to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you joined the interview, and I believe that your ideas and your suggestions can help so many listeners because you are really a good fluent English speaker, and I think it's a really good example for so many people. Maybe we can start with introduction. So if you could tell us something about you and your background, maybe your profession, career, or your interest, so listeners can know you better.
Yeah, well, thank you for your comments, your compliments even, but I'm just a person that is trying to get better in the second language. I come from Italy and I really love English, and in the last few years I tried to get better and better in my learning, and I really found a lot of things. As you said, my name is Massimo, I'm 44 and I live in Udine, Italy, really small city in the northeast of the country. I work as a neurosurgeon in a hospital, and I moved here from Bologna, a typical, we can say, a middle-aged, nice city due south from here. Anyway, I'm married and I have a 14 years old boy, a quite clever boy, let me say. I really love him. I was born in Bologna, as I said. There I got my childhood, my adolescence, and afterwards my medium and high school. Also, I got there my 6 years bachelor degree. And this is interesting because while I was going through university, I realized that I would be interested in central nervous system and eventually surgery of that part of human body. So, therefore, I got my master degree in Ferrara, very near to the city I lived. And I took my master degree in neurosurgery, accomplishing after a while a quite scientific background. I have to say, nowadays, neurology came to be a really, really large science, and I'm really keen on movement disorders. It's a kind of particularly field of neurosurgery. It's not like oncology. In a brief words, I could say that I usually work with people like Parkinsonian disease, I mean. And I usually put electrodes inside the brain of those patients. What about my interests? I always practiced many sports when I was younger. I remember I was laughing when I was thinking about it because I also did caving and rappelling into the caves. Yes, my father brought me into the caves. It was really amazing. And I like fitness, generally speaking, and I like attending my little own gym that I personally built where I live. In my cellar, I built a little gym, and I'm really keen on it.
Oh, that's great. So you've got your own personal gym at your home, right?
Yeah, practicing weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my very deep passion is sailing. I love sailing boats. Let me say, is my dream for the future. We usually rent sailing boats, and I like to steer my family on holiday, usually in Croatia.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, English. English is one of my favorite hobbies. I have to admit, this is true since 2013, since two years ago. I started really 2 years ago to listen to English, to practice my English learning every single day.
Oh.
And every day I try to learn and growth. And in English, I found out that English is an amazing tool to get better in it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and thank you very much for so rich introduction. So you mentioned English is your hobby; it's one of your interests. And so, what was your top motivation? To improve English and to become a fluent English speaker. What was your motivation?
Yeah, this is the most critical point, I think. Let me tell you my story. Now, as I said, having a strong scientific background, it goes without saying that I needed English a lot. Being updated, reading articles requires English. Neurosurgery requires English. But unfortunately, I studied English from medium school in a very traditional, boring way. A lot of unuseful things like grammar. And also, since the beginning, I remember a kind of unrealistic dialogues between, actors that basically spoke a non-language, not the one that I would have met in real life. I remember a lot of dialogues that really, it was so unuseful for me, but everybody screws up. Therefore, I think this is something that happened in many countries all over the world.
Yeah, I agree.
After a while, congresses came for in my work. I had to go here and there, and initially in Italy, I had to speak in front of an audience in Italy, not a problem, of course. But all of a sudden, I had to get some public talks in front of an international, let's say an international bunch of colleagues from all around Europe, US, and the world. Guess what? Tragedy. Even I remember some very, I was sweating. It was really a tragedy for me. And I remember my brain experience, because I began to struggle to pick up from my own English knowledge in my mind the ability to present my data and my surgical experience. So it was weird, actually, because technical English was not difficult for me. I'm able at that time, I'm speaking about let me say, a lot of years ago, I was able to read and understand whole articles and also understand foreign colleagues' presentations. But the really troublesome, the weird thing was the relationship with colleagues. I remember one day attending a congress. I did a first step ahead. I was in the audience. I was sitting in the audience, and I started to think in myself, why don't ask something from the audience? I was thinking, I will be brief. I will do my slow question. So the speaker will answer me, and that's it. This would be I was scared because this would be an improvised English practice, you know?
Yeah.
So that I did. I kept my word and I did. It went fairly well. I remember this because somehow this unblocked me a little step ahead. But as I said before, meeting was not only official presentation on the podium, this short breath holding question from the audience, and sweating, as I said before, hoping that English native speaker on the podium over there would understand me immediately, replying with the answer. So the troublesome and also, I have to say, the embarrassing thing was that I was wandering in the Congress venue. Try to imagine myself. I was strolling around like a ghost, right? I wasn't able to interact with anyone, colleagues, salesmen, friends from all around the world that I already saw. I just said, hello, how are you? That's it. Few words. I was craving to speak, but I knew that I couldn't arrange more than a few phrases. It was so frustrating for me. I got, how can I say, I got pissed off by that situation. I had to do something. I said to myself, I studied English for so many years. Why? What really impressed me at that time, I remember, I have a clear view of this experience. First, the pronunciation. They were fast. They cut the words. Plenty of idioms, friendly, easy way, altogether they were spoken. And also grammar. There was nothing about grammar. Oh my God. Where were all those rules and phrases that I studied? And second, the language. Believe me, even I was listening to a language that I had never heard in my life. My God, it was a trauma for me, something like a trauma. And I was so angry that I almost beat my fist on the table when I thought about it. And eventually I decided English offer a lot of opportunities in life. I was running my career. There was a very critical issue. And I realized this knowledge of a real handling and useful level of English. It was imperative for me. And then I started. I wanted with all of my energy. From the deep of my heart, in a few words, I wanted master my English. And then I scoured internet, and luckily I met a site, learnrealenglish.com, that brought me up to a second one, effortlessenglish.com. Those really changed my life. I needed, I needed fluency, real English practice, a new way to learn, and also a daily program in order to practice and practice over and over again. And so I began to feel a huge, deep enthusiasm, a desire, let's say, of learning and improving. And the directors, those English teachers that you already well know, they started to teach me some principles that I would never took into account. They strongly began to speak about words like motivation, enthusiasm, and also what? Repetition, consistency, energy, fulfilling, just to mention a bunch of them. I don't know how it happened. They were able to boost me in a brand new era of mind. A new mindset was, I was realizing that a new mindset was building in thoughts and beliefs. This basically was my first motivation, but you know what? This is the beautiful thing. After a while, I found out the beauty and the enrichment of internet, that massive sources of information, 99% of them in English.
Oh, yeah.
And when I realized this, I got more and more motivated to learn from internet. And it was an upward positive spiral because I was learning English and I was growing. And as I was growing, I was learning English more and more. I left myself, I got into an upward positive spiral that brought me to keep in touch with English basically every single day of my life. And this is true in the last 2.5, let me think, from middle, yes, 2013, 2.5 years. And also, to conclude, I find this is linked to another motivation that arose in myself. I get stuck in my Italian culture. A couple of years ago, I perceived the need to enlarge my knowledge and to go deeper in English culture. I perceived that keystone, this is one of my favorite words, the keystone habit would have been to go deep in the foreign culture, not only language, but culture. What I'm referring is native habits and behaviors. And you know what? What happened next? I got hooked from it like an addiction. And finally, I want to say something that right now is coming into my mind, that is intuition. And my intuition said something to me. I felt this was like the right way. This was the right way. I consider intuition a very important thing. One time, I read a paper from, and I'm going to read this because this is really, really interesting. I read a paper from Sir Richard Branson, well known all over the world. He said, I research new ideas very thoroughly, asking a lot of people about their experiences and their thoughts. But on many occasions, I have followed my intuition. You can't make decisions based on numbers and reports alone. It's important to have the courage to follow through on a project if you truly believe it's worth pursuing. We all have an intuitive sense of what's best. Follow it. This approach has never let me down. And also, I read something else from Steve Jobs that he wrote in a paper that I usually keep in touch. He wrote, have the courage to follow your art and intuition. Everything else is secondary. Now, I believed I was opening my own new path, and I'm so excited. And guess what? Still I am. I am here.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned your motivation, and ideas. And how do you learn English? I mean, on a daily basis, or what tools do you use? You mentioned one website, but maybe you can tell us more about, these websites, maybe other websites and other sources you use.
Yeah. This was a tough question that was coming up when I began my path, and I was in the beginning of the path, because I didn't want to repeat the same mistakes that I did in the past. When I became frustrated after so many years of wrong method, I knew that I needed something new. Obviously, I needed to change drastically the method. This was the first issue. And I laugh when I say this, but I really believe that if you find the right technique, maybe is 50% of your work, though. Yeah. First and foremost, I follow as more as I can the A.J. Hoag's rules. The 7 rules from effortlessenglish.com and the teachings from Kristen Dodds and Joe Weiss from learnrealenglish.com. I can say this is the core fundamental material of my learning. Among those rules, like no grammar, never-ending listening every single day, true and genuine English material as much as you can. One comes to my mind, and I'm going to say that, but I really would like to invite all friends all over the world that I really would like to keep in touch, that are a learner like me, to trust AJ and the groups from San Francisco, because they are so amazing for me. They are so clever. Anyway, I was saying that one idea comes to my mind. Never learn single words. Single words doesn't work. I really think it's a wasting of your time. You'll forget it. Soon after you read or listening, you'll forget. You'll forget it.
Yeah.
The point is, sentences have a meaning. You'll remember the meaning and the phrase connected to the meaning, and you remember the meaning and you will remember the phrase. This is automatic. This is a spontaneous mechanism of the brain. Simple. It's not simple. I'm joking, of course. It's not easy, also for me. First for me. Let's speak about meditation. Because for me is a simple example to follow through what I said regarding the so-called real material.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very keen on meditation. I scoured the internet and found a bunch of sites that spread all over the world the meditation material. I listen, learn, and all of a sudden I realized that it's true. I follow something I really like, and effortlessly, almost automatically, I suck the language.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my experience in meditation. Eventually, what I found is that learning a second language, trying to master it, is not only learning, but is living a fully awareness. I realized that the way to master a foreign language is to get straight inside the culture. Therefore, I follow through with the TED Talks and many real English material that we can find in internet, also for free. What else? I like word reference as a vocabulary, media online like BBC or CNN, not often, but sometimes. By the way, podcasts, what I really prefer generally are things I can read while I can listen to it. Very useful. The rest, let me say this even because I think the rest is all about persistence and willpower. That's it. Anyway, when you follow carefully AJ's principles and rules, is just a matter of choice. A matter of choice. The fact is, we usually live in a kind of model, a reality that we built up until we are young. And also, I think we can say that we are indoctrinated by society we live in. And it's so difficult to overcome our culture in order to learn a different culture, because it's a matter of culture and resistance to change ourselves. This is the toughest thing, how to figure out the way of living of native, what they take for granted, their habits. When you get this, you are in the right way to master the language. Afterwards, I'll talk more about, if you want, even about my Skype community. There's also Speaky for chatting all around the world. YouTube is another incredible sources, well-known sources of material.
Yes.
Dear Abby, I like Dear Abby letters. I laugh so many times. Dear Abby letters in US. Very funny story from people, very usual, normal people. Very funny and powerful. Also, I recommend Deep English as well. Cool site. Finally, many of them give the chance to speak with someone. Somewhere you have to pay, but very, very often material are for free, really. I also follow through very often in learnrealenglish.com and effortlessenglish.com. That's it. I don't want to be boring. I just want to end up my list telling that I left myself completely hooked from English. Also, Also, this is funny, but this is really, really useful. Reading English version of the manual of your clock, the household electrical appliances, assembling a manual of furniture, television, your device in your house, and so on. Friends, there are so many sources in the internet. Searching will bring you up to success. Yes.
Thank you, Massimo. Thank you very much for all these resources. And several weeks ago, we had an interesting conversation on Skype, and you mentioned an idea of how our identity can affect our English learning process. Could you please tell us something more about this?
Yeah. I remember when I said this, a friend of mine told something about his learning pathway in French speaking. He comes from United States, and I remember that he learned a lot with this system. The question is, what is the most difficult things to do when you learn a new language? What one would say, memorizing, this is natural. I have to learn the words that I need to communicate, and the more I remember, the more I have words to speak, to keep in touch with someone. Wrong. This is wrong. This is not true. And also, this is what I was thinking until 2 years ago. Well, I'm going to explain I don't want to explain the system, but basically, I think this. The beauty of the world is differences. Okay? Mm-hmm. Very luckily, we have not the same culture in the globe. Our language is the direct expression of what we believe and think, namely our culture. Our culture. Therefore, if I want to learn deeply, I'm saying deeply this or that language, I have to be aware of behavior and mindset of people who represent that culture. Technically speaking, it's a nonsense not to use real English material. One of the main rules is to follow original true stuff between real native, or why not, between really clever and well culturalized not native speaker. There are a lot of them all over the world. Ideally, in order to get deeper in the new language and get sucked into it for the rest of your life, we have to transform ourselves. At that time, when we speak new language, actually, we are not ourselves anymore. At that time, we are into someone else, right? Mm-hmm. There are teachers that invite to change also the name. For instance, I wouldn't be Massimo, but Max. Ricardo would change into Richard. And pay attention, we are English. We are not Italian in that situation. We have to change our brain set. Expressions, idioms, sayings come from a way of thinking, a mindset, not the one that you built while you were growing up, but something different, someone different. There are some French teaching systems that invite to shift in that way, as I said before. This kind of thinking brings to establish a radical learning route. What is the point? A radical learning route. I mean, you prepare an open, free pathway in your brain, right? A new, clean way. You have a brand new space, a new, clean way where new culture in your brain, new culture, foreign information will be right. It's a very powerful method, a brand new sheet to draw upon. You can draw in a white sheet, right? It's a new one. It's not the older one. I believe that English, is not Italian or your language translated. In fact, I really believe that the main, or at least one of the main ways to strongly add to a deep knowledge of second language, like English in this case, for me, is learning the culture.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is the common sense. I have a video from YouTube. If you want, I will send you the link.
Mm-hmm.
We could put in the interview as you want, even.
Oh yeah, sure.
And this is a really interesting one. He describes this in a very interesting way. And to conclude up to the beginning, to close the circle, the more challenging thing to do in learning new language, in my opinion, is what native speakers take for granted. Their tastes, their opinions, way of thinking, habits, and also what they have in their mind, in their brain, their beliefs, I mean.
Mm-hmm. It's like living another language, yeah, like being in that language you are learning, yeah.
Yes, it's not learning, but is living. English is just the tool to feel like them, to hear, to speak, to think like them. This is the only way to master a new language. I really had so many progresses in just 1 year that I've never had in all my life, in the whole life.
Yeah, that's a really interesting approach. Yeah, I can completely relate. It was similar to me. I spent so many years trying to speak English, and I couldn't. And after several months, I started to speak because I changed methods, and I can completely relate to what you are saying.
Yeah.
And what would be the number one tip you would give to English learners around the world, to our listeners?
Yeah. Based on my own personal experience, I would say choose real, original material and be persistent with that. Doing that, many valuable attributes of your learning process will grow up spontaneously and automatically. Moreover, you will be hooked by, like me, by your progresses along with your discoveries. But even if I could say a brief list, if you allow me to, let's say, mark down a few tips.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I would say first, real talks. First off, I put in the list in the first place, real material, first off, as I already said. And afterwards, scour the internet in order to find your personal sources of learning.
Mm-hmm.
That means prioritizing and customization. You have to customize your pathway. Again, another issue is listening over and over again. Then follow through the 7 rules by A.J. Hogue.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are so important. And another element is persistency. That means every single day, at least 5 minutes, just to keep your ears trained to the English sound,
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose the pace, the friendship with the language. I realize that if you are not native like me and you don't keep alive English, you will lose fast, really, really fast. I would like to say another 2 points I was thinking about. The first is find your community.
Mm-hmm.
and stay there. Be faithful to them. Don't be shy. Smile with them. Also be grateful with them for what they share and what they are. They are your friends and they share your pathway. This is so important. Finally, quite important as well, do not care about mistakes. I'm gonna get crazy thinking about so many people in my life. They highlighted my mistakes and they brought me to a terrible level of English, right? Do not care about mistakes, friends. Even get rid of emotional negative state of mind. This is the first thing that I picked up from my experience. Get rid of emotional, negative state of mind that comes from them, because mistakes is something. It's really negative. Mistakes. Wow, I had a mistakes. Wow, I had 2, 3, 4, 5 mistakes. I'm terrible. I wouldn't be able. I will never get the learning. I wouldn't be able to learn English. This is not true. That's it. What else? I don't think there's something else. I just wanted to end up presentation, my talk, saying something about the mood, because we think that learning is a matter of growing. And the more we learn, the more we grow. And the more we grow, the more we learn. And the more we learn, the more we make the other people learn. I really want to wish to everyone a happy and amazing life, to all the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Massimo, for these nice words, and thank you very much for this conversation. And I'm really happy that you are with us here today. And I believe that listeners will benefit from your tips and your shared experience.
Thank you very much. I have to thank you, Ivan. My compliment for your site, your blog. Keep doing, keep working. I really like you and your work, and I assure you, I swear, that I really will continue to follow you in internet.
Yeah, thank you very much, Massimo.
Thank you, Ivan.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Massimo, and as you could hear, he's a great English speaker. Massimo, I know you listened to this episode, so thank you so much for your time and also the knowledge and wisdom and all the inspiration as well. And for all of you, thank you so much for listening in, and I love that you are here and listening to this episode. And I look forward to serving you in the next one. So have a great week, enjoy your life, and enjoy English. Bye bye.